Everyone, I'm Fox 11 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Powell here with an update on the winter weather, not only for Wisconsin, but for the vast majority of the country. And in this, I'm going to spend a little bit more time talking about what's happening in the southern United States. But I would like to pass along, there is an extreme cold warning for all of Wisconsin, the vast majority of Michigan, most of Iowa, all of Minnesota, most of North and South Dakota. So this is a wide-ranging Arctic air blast. Cold weather advisories go down into portions of Kentucky and Missouri and Kansas. And there's also extreme cold warnings out for Oklahoma, Texas, and portions of Arkansas, in addition to some other warnings. Over the deep south, when this cold air invades, a big storm system is going to work across southern United States. Winter storm warnings are out now from eastern New Mexico all the way to Kentucky, almost, well, at the border with West Virginia and Virginia. There are ice storm warnings out over northern Mississippi and portions of east central Mississippi, west central Mississippi, a small chunk of Arkansas, and a little portion of Louisiana. I think the ice storm warnings may get expanded due to the volume of ice that I'm expecting. There are winter storm watches out down to Houston, Atlanta, Charlotte, all through the Carolinas and up into the New England states, all under winter storm watches as this storm moves in. So what's going to happen is tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., the Arctic air is pushing south. Look how far south this Arctic air pushes, right up to the Gulf of Mexico. So temperatures are going to be dropping across Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, North Texas, Tennessee, Arkansas, and temperatures get below freezing. And that is one of the big concerns with this storm. Huge storm system moves out of the Intermountain West, cuts right across central Texas, and then runs towards the southeastern United States. Notice, as it does, temperatures are below freezing through the Piedmont. Temperatures drop way below freezing behind the storm into Texas. Dallas Sunday morning at 18, down to 28 in Austin. So some really cold air following in this storm. Specifically, I want to talk about the Atlanta area because with the Appalachian Mountains sitting in here, we're going to see the very, very cold Arctic high pressure start moving east. Once it starts moving east, the cold air is going to sweep down the Piedmont and move towards the southern end of the Appalachians. That is eventually what brings the temperature down in Atlanta. You can see that cold kind of sneaking down through the Carolinas, heading through Friday night into Saturday morning. Saturday during the day, it holds steady over most of South Carolina. But Saturday night, it backs up, and Atlanta may drop into the upper 20s. The unfortunate portion is we are going to see rain moving through at that point. So with temperatures in the upper 20s and rain falling, that means ice accumulation around Atlanta. Eventually, the storm system runs up towards the New England states, and that's where the New England states really get caked in snow. And I think that's mainly going to be Sunday into Monday. So this frontal boundary gets all the way down to the Gulf Coast. Area of low pressure tomorrow evening is moving out into Texas with ice, freezing rain, and snow out ahead of it. That spreads towards the east with freezing rain over portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and on the backside of the storm, as that fresh cold air digs south again, you're going to see some freezing rain and sleet on the backside of the storm, in addition to more snowfall over western sections of Oklahoma and the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. The storm system intensifies, runs towards about north central sections of Alabama, but that leaves a stripe of ice basically from Louisiana, northern Louisiana, through parts of Arkansas, right up into Kentucky. And there's going to be a battleground in here where the computer models are going to vary a little bit, and you'll get freezing rain, some sleet, snow, depending on your location, and we'll have to watch that very closely. Then the area of low pressure runs up towards the New England states and takes the snow northward. Here's the concern with precipitation types. Now, snow develops in the upper levels of the atmosphere, actually only about 10 to 13,000 feet up, and where it's about 5 degrees. That's where the snowflakes are born. And as those snowflakes fall, it's running into a layer between 1,000 feet and 3,000 feet off the ground where temperatures could be close to 40. So that melts the snowflakes, and you just end up with real cold raindrops falling into that very shallow air near the ground. Lowest 500 to 1,000 feet, likely below freezing. So if it's 27 degrees and you have cold rain falling, that rain forms sheet ice and just kind of freezes to everything, including power lines, trees, infrastructure, bridges, roadways, and basically anything that's been outside. And that's where you run into problems. Here's a look at the Future Track snowfall forecast. It shows the snow spreading out from West Texas and running all the way up towards Boston. So this is going to be a wide-ranging snow, basically from tomorrow night all the way through lunchtime on Monday. Snowfall amounts could be quite heavy. This is one specific computer model, so don't get too caught up on the amounts. But snowfall could be quite heavy over parts of Oklahoma, through the Ozarks, then in a stripe over to southern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, northern sections of Kentucky, almost right along the Ohio River up to Cincinnati. And then as we head into the Appalachians and New England states, very heavy snow, especially in parts of West Virginia and Pennsylvania. But in the more populated areas, could see maybe a foot of snow in New York City, close to a foot of snow in Boston, down towards Philadelphia, maybe 8 to 10 inches. And then some extremely heavy amounts, especially west of Baltimore and west of Philadelphia through the central portions of Pennsylvania. That is only one small part of this storm. This is a look at ice accumulation. Basically, North Texas, most of Arkansas and northern Louisiana, up through a good chunk of Tennessee, and then extending over towards the Piedmont. I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer, give you an idea of some of these ice amounts. Maybe an inch of sheet ice in Texarkana, maybe a little more than ½ inch in Dallas. So again, this is a computer model, so it's spitting out actual digits. There is going to be some variation in this, especially once the precipitation starts. But you see very heavy ice possible over northern Mississippi, most of Tennessee, a good chunk of Kentucky, and then through the Piedmont, really from Virginia, Washington, D.C., southward through North Carolina, South Carolina, and then sneaking back around the southern end of the Appalachians towards Atlanta. And that's a big concern, because when you start accumulating ice, this is how ice works. Under 1/10 of an inch, really not a problem. When you get between 1/10 and 1/4 inch, you start seeing additional problems. Over 1/4 inch of ice, you start getting scattered power interruptions, roads, bridges, sidewalks become extremely hazardous. Main roads could be okay if you have a lot of salt and the preparative treatment that we do across the northern states. Now, obviously, in the southern states, it's a little more difficult to deal with because they don't have the equipment that we have in the north. Over 1/2 inch, you start getting into numerous power outages, tree branch damage, and travel is nearly impossible. But when you get over 1 inch, catastrophic utility damage is expected, where you'll have power lines down, widespread heavy tree damage where trees are collapsing, taking out not only the main power lines, but secondary and tertiary power lines. Then you end up with long-term power outages. Also, when you accumulate that much ice, it's almost impossible to travel anywhere. I mean, travel is pretty much done. And that includes not only roads, but it does include airports as well. So back to the ice accumulation, and you can see 1/2 inch to 1 inch plus over North Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, and over into the eastern sections of the United States. This would help, well, it would do a lot for shutting down road travel on interstates that run through these regions, but also, big concern, Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, a major hub. Atlanta, Hartsfield, a major hub. Charlotte becoming a much larger hub. Washington, D.C. could see ice and snow. Obviously, a lot of air traffic through there. And then, much of the FedEx traffic goes through Memphis. So all of these airports may be shut down at times, and maybe for elongated times through the upcoming weekend, which would cause cascading effects through the U.S. air travel system all the way through the upcoming weekend, not even to speak of what's happening on the roads. Extreme cold warning continues for our viewing area. That is all the way through Saturday morning. We are going to see wind chills as low as -45 overnight tonight. Currently, the cold front is northwest of Green Bay, moving into the northwest parts of our viewing area. Temperatures are going to be crashing over the next 5 or 6 hours. Thank you for joining us. We'll have more coming up on our newscast coming up this evening.